We inspire, enable, educate, discuss, innovate. Motivate. Challenge. Let us help you elevate your team. Email us at info@strategyfocusedgroup.com.
Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, you know it's the CEO series, where we bring together global leaders, entrepreneurs, disruptors, innovators, educators. Today, our guest is Professor Abhilasha Singh, who is the Vice President of Academic Affairs at American University in the Emirates, located in Dubai. She also serves as an executive board member and country director of the UAE at the International Higher Education Teaching and Learning Association. Throughout her distinguished career, she has engaged in a series of academic and administrative initiatives. She is passionate about research and has published articles in higher education journals and frequent invitations at numerous speaking engagements to national and international audiences, where we met years ago. She has a PhD in psychology. She's a certified practitioner of balanced scorecard, EQ, SHRM, CIPD, MBTI. Welcome, Dr. Singh. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Ron. And thank you for that lovely introduction. It's always a matter of pride and privilege for me to have a conversation with you.
Thank you. So the feeling is mutual, and we've been knowing each other for years. And as I said, we first met. You were the MC of a conference. You were the MC of a panel, and I was on that panel, and we connected years and years ago. Yeah. So I have a very good memory. So higher education. Let's talk through higher education. Was severely disrupted during COVID, as well as everything else was. How has it changed the dynamics of educating people in a so-called post-COVID environment?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question, Ron. I'm sure you will agree that the entire pandemic, it presented some very harsh realities for all of us, where we have noticed that education of billions and billions of students were hampered. It was very unprecedented disruption. And I can see that this disruption is going to have long-term consequences in education sector. Yeah. And if you look at in this phase of complete uncertainty, there was a brighter side, which was we started investing a lot in educational technologies to connect with students. Yeah. Because we, as an institution, as a higher education provider, we have to ensure the continuity of education. Mm-hmm. So that was the case. But sorry to say, it can be seen the entire pandemic as a very good crisis to shake up the higher education sector. Yeah. I mean, it was a long-awaited changes we all wanted in the higher education sector. So I noticed more and more support, more empathy towards educational institutions, towards faculty members. Yeah. We also noticed a culture of change and a culture of adapting to change just in few weeks. I mean, you know about change management, how difficult it is.
Yeah.
You have been teaching my students,
Yes.
taking sessions on change management. So it is so difficult, so challenging. But it was challenging, but we successfully transitioned to remote teaching and learning, including student advising, student registration, faculty development program,
Mhm.
complete assessments and examination. Everything was done remotely. And
Okay.
it was all done in a matter of just few weeks. That
Wow.
was our spring break going on when in March 2020 this happened. So institutions and students, both have very soon, rapidly, they adapted to this unexpected impact of
Mm, mm,
the pandemic on teaching and learning.
yeah.
It was challenging learning curve, very
Yeah.
challenging learning curve. But the good side is, the bright side is that, many of the computer applications like MS Team, like Google Meet, Google Classroom,
Yes.
this was all utilized.
Yes.
What we started missing, and when we were doing the survey, we were doing every, like, quarterly, we were conducting survey for faculty as well as students. And we noticed that the break in the physical interaction between the teacher and the taught,
Yes.
that has definitely impacted the learning environment, because
Mm,
we are social animals.
yes. Yes.
The need for physical proximity is there,
Yeah.
the live expressions, writing on the whiteboard, which was earlier blackboard, now it's whiteboard, the corridor discussions, after class discussions,
I know.
that cannot be replaced.
It,
So yeah.
so it can't be replaced. So I've always looked at COVID, post COVID, and I know there was disruption. I've lost close family members, but I said from an organizational perspective, it was probably the best shakeup that could have ever happened because it caused all of
True.
us, whether an organization or higher education, to rethink the way that we do what we do, whether it's business, whether it's interacting with our people. You mentioned technology and shifting to that. So you have an audience of students who are technology based. They grew up on this, doing this. And then you may have an organization who's trying to get to that point. Was that a steep curve to for people to even learn how to use Teams? Because I know it was difficult
Yeah.
for us because we took a couple of weeks, uh, you know, trying to understand how to project and how to run sessions on the virtual platforms.
Yeah. I mean, see, when you are saying that students, they are digital natives and they grew up with technology.
Yes.
What I feel that students are tech savvy, but sometimes only in terms of their social media presence.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
mean, they know how to tweet, they know how to use Instagram, they know how to use WhatsApp, and but when it comes to the using the application, I
Yes.
know that it was a challenge to train the faculty,
Yes.
but then it was not. There were different set of challenges with students as well. So we offered continuous trainings to both
Mm,
students and to faculty members.
okay.
And
Okay.
especially for students, it was not only tech challenges. The students were facing anxiety, they were facing depression, they were in social isolation. Many of the students were living with the families, for many having challenges with the private space. They were in a one bedroom apartment, studio apartment with the family, and
Yes.
now they need their private space to for their classes. So there were different set of challenges. So
Yeah.
support was offered to both faculty and students. More support was offered to faculty members, right from transforming the pedagogy to offering more advanced training, so that they can incorporate it into course design, into
Okay.
course assessment.
Okay. Okay.
And for students, more training were offered to utilize online advising tool. For example, a lot of training was offered to them to ensure academic integrity. Online it was so easy. They can probably somebody else can give exam. So we started using lockdown browser responders, and we had to provide ample training to them. So being tech savvy was not very helpful,
Okay.
but, because it was a new application.
Okay.
So students were trained for examination. They were trained to utilize online advising portal,
Mhm.
how to use a platform for peer mentoring, because we do have a facility of peer mentoring. So one thing which I can say, that both students and faculty, they adapted well to the technology,
Okay.
and they adapted soon. That was a good point.
Wow. That's cool. One of the things you just mentioned that has always been intriguing to me, and I always advise my clients, specifically post COVID, but even during COVID. So you said during COVID, you surveyed your students, you surveyed the instructors. You would be surprised how many organizations never thought of that, and they create these policies to come back and people resist because they never asked them. So one of the key, you mentioned change management, one of the keys steps in change management is understanding the audience that's impacted. So you've got faculty.
I'll give you one example that when we were surveying, we were using a tool called Flexi Quiz for our quizzes for the course assessment.
Okay.
And when we surveyed the faculty and students, we found a lot of negative comments. So we stopped that actually, and we bought responders. We took the accessibility of responders. So the surveys, when we get the feedback, honest feedback of the stakeholders, then accordingly we can work on it. So it was very useful for us, and we were doing quarterly surveys.
Yes. I need to get you to talk to some of the people I deal with because they are so far behind. That's not an intensive thought process to think through. I should ask them to get their feelings on this before I just move ahead, in doing this. So in guiding that through and coming up with that, and you got the surveys back. So, and then you created the policies or changes around based on the feedback. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, yeah. So that's true. So because what happens usually that the moment you are conducting survey, you don't have only the set of questions with a Likert scale of strongly agree to strongly disagree, right? You have you have open-ended questions,
Yes.
so you get more information, right? And then we are using like some application like NVivo, so we do a text analysis as well. So
Okay.
those surveys were qualitatively and quantitatively analyzed, and then accordingly we developed a policy on distance learning, and we submitted this policy to the Ministry of Education.
Okay. So for all of my clients who's listening in, when I talk to you about the two Qs, qualitative, quantitative, this is exactly what she's talking about. Taking that information and looking for keywords and those kind of approaches to doing that. And this way it gives you kind of talking points of how do you move beyond that. So I want to reference a case. Microsoft did this the day they closed down. They set up a unit. They created surveys. They had a statistical team go through and do the analysis that you're talking about. And they did this consistently during lockdown. And when they were able to come back, they were able to design an approach coming back based on feedback, or anchored in feedback, not everything that was given.
Yeah.
And this is basically what you did.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So who drove that strategic thinking? I mean, who was the strategy? Were you the strategy person behind a collaborative?
So you know that there is a being a vice president for academic affairs, I utilize sometime focus group.
Okay.
So I connect with some of the faculty. I bring them on board. I also try to take some inputs from students. So we do have an academic council where there is a mandatory presence of a student.
Okay.
So the student is the vice president for student council.
Okay.
So his presence is also very important because he is a student voice. So it is, you devise a strategy, but the fundamental here is that you need to engage people in policy formulation so that the policy implementation can be successful.
I did a group last night out of, not night before last, out of China. And we talked about that, the collaborative approach to problem solving, a collaborative approach to solutioning. You can't design solutions in a vacuum. So you have a student council person, you have faculty representative, you have administrative people. And through that feedback and whatever else you're picking up, you are able to design a solution.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Awesome in doing that. So you wrote an article, the gendered leadership in the UAE. I'm like, whoa, okay, cool. This is where the PhD stuff, the heavy thinking is coming out. Walk us through that.
So gender issues are always, close to my heart.
Yeah.
It's very close. So I was, during my time in Saudi Arabia in 2006, 2007, I wrote a paper on the status of women in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
When it comes to UAE, we all know that UAE is a very UAE has taken a very liberal view of the
Yes.
uh, interpretation of the roles of men and women in the society. The good part is that it has taken certain action, so especially so that there is a degenderedness, there is an equal role to both men and women.
Mhm.
Whether you talk about parliament, you talk about women presence in public sector. So these UAE is a country that that is having some laws, some legal opinion, I can say, which
Mhm.
influences the workplace structure, the social custom. I mean, AUE, American University in the Emirates, is a good example. There are three vice presidents, all three women,
Oh,
associate vice president women. There are two deans women. So I like, I just wanted to write something on degenderedness.
mm,
Uh, Traditional role of a woman in
I know.
Islamic culture, even in many culture different. I mean, I can give you example of India as well. It's a traditionally the woman is a homemaker, she's
Yes.
a mother,
Yes.
and men and
Here in the house.
society,
Yes.
they perceive women that in that traditional role. So
Yes.
they cannot perceive women in a leadership position in a professional business world.
Mhm.
For them, the place of women is at home, not in the outside world.
Yes. Yes.
So men are always, sorry to say, I know you are there on the other side, but men hold very authoritative position both at home and in the outside world.
I know.
So this makes extremely difficult for men to take orders from women in organization or in any position, of authority and leadership. I don't know whether you had a women boss anytime,
I've-
but
All my
that's what.
life, all my life until I went out on my own. But I never had a problem with that because my mother was a strong woman, and she always spoke her mind. So
Uh-huh.
I was used to that. But if I have come up in another kind of environment whereby my mother was kind of seen as the servant for the household, I probably would have adopted a lot of that. And this is why it's important that when we start families, that we show this leadership
Yeah,
position. There's two
yeah,
people
correct.
instead
It
of an
starts from the family.
organization as in household.
Yeah. So what happened that while women are empowered by the UAE government for their active participation in public and private sector, in 2017 or 2018 there was a study, and this study reported something which was like women of UAE are not very confident to acquire education from countries abroad, and they prefer staying with their family. We were also noticing our enrollment for the female student, it was going up. So I decided to investigate the experiences of women who are working at the managerial position, and I wanted to understand like what are the reasons regarding underrepresentation of women, especially at the managerial position, or if there is any gender segregation, uh, so that we can develop a degendered leadership organizational structure.
Mm.
And the results were very, very interesting. I mean, it showed clearly that the gender of a leader is inconsequential where men and women are treated equally. So
Wow.
this is the key point, that if they are treated equally, it's inconsequential.
Yeah.
And I took a number of variables like work-life balance, management support, relationship with their colleague. So it was a good study. It showed that men are likely to be perceived as very autocratic, while women are very uh, democratic in their management style.
Yes.
I
You
don't I don't know how much you will agree, but this is what the result
I
depicts.
agree with everything that you have said. And you mentioned I lived in Saudi 2000s. I'm going to say maybe it's 2008.
Okay,
Lived there
then
for
I
a
left.
year and a half, and it was mentally it was difficult for me to come from New York into the Saudi culture and trying to understand all of the nuances and the visuals that you would see throughout that time. So I'm a big proponent of women in leadership. I do a lot of coaching for upcoming female leaders. Matter of fact, there's a big conference coming to Dubai that's going to be produced by a good friend of mine, Yulia Stark, European Women's Association. I'm going to connect you with her because that would be a great topic for a presentation. That would be a great
Okay,
topic,
I would love to.
yeah, for a presentation. So that article, did it generate a lot of buzz, a lot of discussions, or
Yeah, I mean, see, this was a very Let's keep in mind that we, as a researcher, we write, our writing is very academic.
I understand.
It was not on LinkedIn or it was not on a blog. Probably it will have more attention if you are just writing like a white paper.
I see.
Academic writing, uh, they do not attract a lot of. They are not lucrative, I can say. I mean, they do not attract a lot of buzz.
Okay.
But it was interesting for me. I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed actually interviewing people.
Yeah.
So I interviewed a lot of women who are vice presidents, presidents, dean in the country, and I like that.
Hmm.
So that was it's a kind of motivation you get when you start meeting people. You talk to them, you try to understand their issues, how they are managing, how the work life balance is affecting them.
Yes. But you know what? If I could give you a piece of advice, that article in a LinkedIn posting or that would create a lot of buzz today
I will
because
do that.
you look across and you see tidbits of these kinds of discussion. And this is from a worker, so to speak. But when you've got an educator who's done the research, who's interviewed
Mm.
people, that carries a higher level of content value than a blog post. Blog post is just my ideas on something. But here you've got the heavy lifters putting something together as it relates to that. So I think, yeah, as a piece of advice, I think that's an article that you can move forward with.
I will do that. I will actually I put the link there in on LinkedIn, but I will put the entire article maybe.
Yes, good to do that. So you're educating because a part of your program, which I and I'll say this, I teach a course there, with you at American University. The interaction with the younger female leaders, because I enjoy the parts of my class. I enjoy everybody, but I enjoy the young ladies who's a part of the class and the way they're presenting and the confidence level that they're exhibiting, over a period of time doing the class and how they feel more confident in doing that. Are you noticing that
I mean,
the new,
yeah,
newer, I don't
yeah.
want to say newer women, but the women that are coming up in business today? I say
See,
business because it's
yeah,
an MBA program. Go ahead.
yeah. So I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, if I have to compare the student, uh, probably the current student as compared to last 5 6 years back, nowadays the not only the I mean I'm talking about the overall student body, I mean, including the male and the female both students. They're becoming more self-reliant.
Yes.
So and with becoming more tech savvy, they have helped themselves and the entire family, their community. Maybe COVID has is another factor which has compelled the student leaders to inculcate some new set of competencies in dealing with others. So if I have to look at the students at AUE, we have majority of our students around 40 to 50%, they are Emiratis,
Yes.
and other group comes from the GCC, like they are GCC national,
Yes.
right? So this generation of MBA students are very well exposed to the business,
Yes.
to various economy, to the political scenarios. They are well traveled. Many of them have studied or worked for a short period of time in other developed countries,
Yes.
so they have absorbed some aspects of work culture or a different culture. So
Hmm.
I'm noticing that there is a definite desire to not just obtain a degree, but also to take up senior management position,
Yes.
and which requires them to perform. So they are keen now to study.
Hmm.
So they are keen to develop themselves. So this is a big departure from the previous generation of students. The students are now more mature, they are more responsible,
Yes.
they are flexible, right? They are flexible. If you ask them, and you have been associated with the students for last 3 years, I mean,
Yes. Yes.
you have seen different cohorts,
Yes.
and you notice that how flexible they are. I mean, taking a 3 hour of workshops at a
Yes.
stretch, and
Yes.
then coming well prepared in the class. So we notice that yes, there is a big departure from the previous generation of students. They are more mature and more responsive now.
Yeah. You know what? And I think I mentioned this in the last class that I ran because I deal with senior executives across the globe, and we always do case studies, and they present case studies. The the last group, the last couple of groups, their level of insight into that case was absolutely phenomenal. And I think I mentioned this in the last group, and I said,
You
I,
mentioned it.
I
Yeah, you
group of
mentioned
senior
to me.
executives, they don't develop, their presentation is not as developed as yours, and they're senior leaders inside of organizations. They struggle with this. I find it absolutely amazing.
Yeah. You mentioned this to me and you mentioned this to students, and students were very happy.
Yes,
And
yes.
I know some of them are still connected with you.
Oh, the vast majority of them are still connected, from time. And that's one
Yeah.
of the young ladies just got a big promotion, and I said, "Hey, congratulations," and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what? That's the good side of it. So, what are some of the challenges you're seeing? It's post COVID, it's technology based. Now it's opening back up to properly a dual model. What are some challenges you're seeing
Uh,
that's
so
popping up now?
university, I personally believe that university is like a community, you know, where education is an exchange of information
Hmm.
that requires, and it's not only a degree which people are getting. It's basically there's an exchange of information. It requires understanding different perspective, right? It requires a lot of tolerance. It requires understanding of content, making connections, engaging and learning from each other. So for more than a year, students were dealing with people virtually, right? So they became, initially it was challenging, but gradually, over the last, like, let us say more than 18 months, students became more comfortable
Yes.
learning from their places and at their own pace, right? So they adapted to the online teaching and learning approaches.
So
And initially it was a challenge. Now they adapted to the
yes,
online teaching and
yes.
learning approaches. So we have students coming from other Emirates, like from Abu Dhabi. And we are located in Dubai
Goodbye.
Academic City. So coming all the way from Abu Dhabi or coming from offshore,
Oh wow.
commuting, it has been a challenge for them now post COVID. Yet they reported something in the survey that it is a better learning experience when they are on campus.
Yes.
But still, they reported like challenges of commuting.
Yes.
Some of the students, they preferred online assessments.
Yes.
So some students who preferred online assessments are facing challenge with the conventional form of paper-based assessment.
Yes.
You will be surprised that we decided that all the exams, major exams, midterm and final exams, are going to be on campus.
Okay. Okay.
So the president and the vice president of the student council, they approached us and they compelled us to have a meeting with them. And they said that no, they don't want paper-based exam because their writing is slow and they don't want to lose marks.
Okay.
So they want traditional, sorry, they want the online exams. So they want to bring their computer.
Mm.
Now we decided, okay, we will give them the option of either online or paper-based assessment, but their presence was mandatory to be on campus.
Okay. So they come on campus, they can still go online and do it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fair spot.
And this was during the transition. So
Okay.
some students who preferred online assessments, they are facing challenges with conventional form of paper-based assessment.
Mm.
And some of them are overwhelmed if you are asking them to, okay, online because they are not able to manage their time. Others are excited
Yes.
with very tried and tested blended learning approach.
Yes. Yes. Well,
The,
see.
the, the issue is that once, this was a genie. When the genie is out of the bottle, it will never go back. So while the online move was challenging for educators
Yes.
and students, it now offered a degree of flexibility in learning that
Yeah.
reflected in the heterogeneity of students and their needs. So
Yeah.
we as an institutions, we are also adapting to their need
Mm.
for flexibility in offering the courses and scheduling their offerings.
Yeah. In having this conversation, one of the things I'm realizing is that there's so much that organizations can learn from you, the collaborative approach, having people choose. You'd make the choice between this style or this style, either coming in, whatever it is, but you have to be in that. That's so everyone can kind of agree on something. But you see so many organizations, they make all the rules and they don't collaborate. And then when people push back, they're trying to figure out what did we do wrong.
Yeah.
And your interpretation, the way that higher education is approaching this is this exact same way that organizations should approach it. The
Yeah.
exact same way that organizations should.
I think it is very important because we have to listen to them.
Yes.
We have to take their words, and then we have to agree. There should be a consensus. Otherwise, there will be dissatisfaction. So there has to be a consensus.
Yeah. So you're kind of taking their interpretation, your interpretation,
Yeah,
and you're weaving together a solution that we can all shake hands and agree on and trying to move that forward.
yeah,
Exactly. Let's take a commercial break and we'll come right back.
sure.
Do you have an all-star HR team? You may feel your team is already performing at a high level, but let's take a closer look. Would your company's top leaders and employees agree that your HR team are operating at a high level? Are team members able to influence top executives on difficult topics? Are team members' business and strategy focused on the challenges the organization is facing? Does the executive team trust your direct reports as advisors on human capital issues? If you can answer yes to these questions, you have built an outstanding team. If you feel there is room for improvement, Strategy Focused Group can create a custom development program to elevate the quality of your HR team. We use HCI certification programs as well as non-certified HRBP MBA Masterclass to give your team a laser focus on the business and strategy. Please email us at info@strategyfocusedgroup.com.
Okay, let's flip the switch and welcome back everyone. So we've talked about higher education. You're preparing, the next level of leaders. You're doing this in a challenging environment, COVID, post-COVID, and moving and developing these people to go out into the world. What advice would you give to organizations, my clients, in the process of trying to find new talent, entry-level talent, very talented young people, highly educated? What approach would you advise them to possibly change the old approach or approach it differently?
So we are talking about Generation Z,
Yes.
right?
I
And
get
or
confused.
millennial.
I'm assuming it's Gen Z. Yeah.
Yeah. And so these are digital natives, and they are very well connected with the world, with their smartphones. I mean, we were the sessions were offered through MS Team, and
Yes.
I noticed that most of them were bringing their smartphones.
Yes.
So they are in a fraction of second they are connected with their with TikTok, with YouTube, with Instagram, Twitter, Reels. I don't know. You can name it. And I'm dealing with Gen X and Gen Z both, Gen Y and Gen Z both, because both in the university and in my family.
Yes.
I have two boys and different generation, I can say. So the need for connections, meaningful relationship, and feedback can be noticed. And I believe that a very clear career, they require a very clear career path. I mean, I notice some of my staff here, they sometimes, if there is a dissatisfaction and you start reflecting and you start introspecting, you can notice easily that this is a generation which require a very clear career path,
Yes.
growth opportunities. They also need very flexible work options, and for them work life balance is so important. So the companies, I think, should understand this part, and they should integrate this into their culture. I mean, my son works for Deloitte, and I'm noticing that most of the time he works from Starbucks.
Mhm. Yes.
So they want to work like
Awesome.
some. Yeah, I mean, and I also recommend that when I talk to them and when I talk to some of my staff, I can see that they don't like micromanagement.
Yes.
So the company should avoid doing that, because if you want innovation in the company,
Yeah.
something which the company should understand that allow people to do mistakes, because they will learn from their mistakes. Instead of having a very rigid
Yes.
bureaucratic environment and culture, let them be give them flexibility,
Mhm.
and let them do mistakes and let them learn from the mistakes. So I also recommend no micromanagement.
Yes.
So we all know that optimum performance is always obtained. It can be there in the company. It's always obtained with when the people when the employee in any organization, they understand the challenges, what challenges they are going to face, what are the processes which are in the company, which are adopted by any department, and it also helps to develop a very close relationship. So induction is very important. And for me, I think it's not only about the mindset, it's also about the skill set.
Hmm.
So they are willing to learn. And you coming from the HR background, you know that skill will matrix.
Yes.
So if the skills are there and they are motivated to learn,
Yeah.
the question comes that is the company having such culture to
Mm,
encourage them to
mm,
learn, to
mm.
have this kind of to have a is the company having the growth mindset,
Yes.
right? It's not about the mindset of the Gen Z. It's about the mindset, the growth mindset of the company,
Organization.
of the organization. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, agility and resilience are important traits to be identified, and companies must understand the career expectation of their employees.
Mm. When I read the business news and I hear some of these announcements these companies are making with no flexibility, well, they call it flexibility. But one of the things I thought about is that the leaders that are making these decisions come from a different generation. And the generation they came from, they were in the office every day. They built their career in the office, and they talk about the importance of bumping into each other, the importance of the water cooler, and all this foolishness. But as you said earlier, the genie is out of the bag. If you don't offer this, they're going to go someplace else.
They
If
will
your
go.
son, who spends a lot of time at Starbucks, was told that, okay, I need you back in the office 4 days a week, for the most part, he's probably going to look for the flexibility that he had during that period.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look at the higher education. Look at the population here, and look at the number of institutions are there. So, I mean, we have more than 100, higher education institutions, right? If
Really?
I'm not going to make my people happy and satisfied, and I'm not going to
Yeah,
change my policy and understand their career expectation,
yeah,
they are going to knock the other door.
that's right. So I always, when I have these discussions with them, and they're hard fixed on trying to put some rigidity back into this, and I said, if your customer told you that they wanted to do business in a different way, all social, and you were still trying to convince them that we needed to do it the old way, I said, what do you think will happen? You answer that question, and you could see the wheels turning as they're trying to think
Yeah.
that, but they know what it is. But again, I feel it. I feel it's because they've been successful. They've been working their way up, and they were in the office all day, and they're still trying to make everyone else follow their approach to doing that. The other thing I've noticed is that the companies that are offering Airbnb CEO wrote a great letter. I don't care where you work from, as long as the work gets done. And that was the
Correct.
premise of his approach. Younger CEO comes from a different zone than the so-called older CEO that still does not want to let go. They want to, as you said, they want to put that genie back into the bag. It's over with.
I mean, the organization need to decide what they want. They want basically people to be there 8 hours, or they want the work to be done.
Yes.
And I will share a good example. Like we as an institution, I think we are the first institution in the private sector in UAE. We decided that let us give Friday off to the faculty.
Oh, okay.
So we gave Friday off to the faculty. You work from home, and this is basically not work from home. This is your research day.
Yeah.
You want to go out, you want to collect data, you contribute to the community, you just develop yourself,
Yeah.
it's a professional development.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
go and you do some certification. It's your day.
Yeah.
Spend the way you want,
Yeah.
right? So there is a way to do that. I mean, we as an institution, we can say no, 5 days a week, 40 hours, you have to be here. Or you can find some kind of unique strategy and you can make your people happy.
Custom design approach.
Custom design approach.
That's exactly what it is, you know. And but again, it goes back to people wanting to redo the same things. So what are your thoughts? Because I've been reading a lot about companies as it relates to entry level jobs no longer requiring a college degree. And I'm trying to think through that on both sides and doing that. I know the gaming industry, for the most part, I think the gaming industry has the most people with jobs who've never finished college and they were gamers and they may not have gone to 1 year of college or whatever it is. What are your thoughts on that?
And you will find ample examples that the school dropouts are great, great, great people.
Yes.
So I strongly believe that capabilities and skill set should matter, not the degree.
Yeah.
especially for the entry level jobs.
Okay.
So, where more than prior experience on the job training is required. So, we are talking about your question was about the entry level job.
Yes.
So, more than the prior experience, on the job training is required.
Okay.
It doesn't mean there is no value of higher education.
Yeah.
And few days back, I was reading a report, and according to Wall Street Journal, it was like 49% of people, they said that the students, they believed that a 4-year degree was worth the time and money, compared with 47 who did not see the value of college.
Okay.
I believe education and educational degrees are simply creating a foundation to the way we are being trained to think and to achieve a certain goal,
Yeah.
achieve certain outcome. They are not necessarily an end, a tool to measure the competence. It has its own role in setting the thought process in place,
Yeah.
whether it is industry, whether it is arts or sciences. Uh, but I agree that the real skills come from dirting your hands on the shop floor, being challenged in real life situation, operating machines in the factory, dealing with people in the market, negotiating with them,
Mhm.
having the ability to face and counter challenge, and
Yeah.
come out winning. So good universities and good curriculum are integrating industry experience into their curriculum through internships, through work experience program as part of the degree program.
Mhm.
And most of the interns are able to convert their internships to full-time job.
Exactly.
I mean, we invited Ron Thomas to our MBA degree program as a regular facilitator,
Yes.
right? Because we
Yeah.
wanted to have the industry inputs.
Excellent.
So the more we align the curriculum with industry, the better it is. So I strongly believe that formal education is critical for the holistic development of students
Yeah.
and to graduate very responsible, passionate, productive citizens who can contribute to the advancement of their respective community.
Yeah.
And this is our university vision.
Yeah. I go both ways on it, but I'm anchored in getting the foundation. You mentioned the term foundation because that degree is the foundation. And when you get out into the world, the winds of change and disruptions and all those things, but you have that anchor of that degree. And that's my thought. And my parent, one of my parents finished college, and their ultimate goal was that every one of us got a college degree. And that was kind of drilled into us as a child. So I'll never let that go, regardless of what you want to do. Get the degree as a foundation because there could
Right.
come a time where you need that, and maybe you need the rigor of trying to prepare for an exam because in work you've got to prepare for a project, and you can anchor on some of the learnings that you have gone through that you probably would never have been able to do if you did not go to college and you had to study for finals and presentations and all these kinds of things. So I look at it as a training ground.
Yeah, and there is a lot of intangible benefits as well.
Yes.
The way you meet with people, the way you interact, the way there is a competitiveness which is developed, there are a lot of intangible benefits as well.
Mm, okay. Okay. So as you look into your crystal ball, what do you see of the future of higher education? Because you've made tremendous changes, being one of the leading schools in the Dubai UAE. What do you see as a 3, 4, 5 years down the journey?
Mhm.
How is it going to change, or will it
Mhm.
manifest itself based on
Mhm.
where we are now?
Hmm. So see, we noticed a very paradigm shift uh, in education sector. If you look, the pandemic, this recent pandemic, it revealed clearly
Yeah.
the vulnerability to the crisis,
Mhm.
and it also showed us like how risky and interdependent the economies we have built can be. But with every crisis situation, uh, there are deep challenges, but there are also some opportunities for transformation. And this transformation, this paradigm shift was badly needed in the higher education. So the past education crisis have shown us that it is possible to build back better, give to the community in a better way.
Mhm.
It offered an opportunity to rethink about the curriculum, the complete curricular content,
Yes.
with a shift to digital pedagogy,
Okay.
blended mode of learning, Because higher education is evolving at a rapid pace.
Yes.
So the research and innovation will be always the key. It will be definitely required. The continuity of education, we all have to think about it, so that we can support the students' resilience, their well being. We can help in reducing their anxiety during any emergency,
Yes.
right? To reflect the role of the entire education system and focus more on vocational education system, particularly
Oh,
in promoting the resilient society. So from my perspective, by the way, the UAE government, it has set the some pillars to achieve the national strategy for higher education,
yes.
and one of their initiative was to provide students with the career training programs,
Mhm.
which is like on campus, like internship,
Yes.
on campus, job shadowing, joint ventures, some kind of vocational training. And from my perspective, this is going to be the key.
Mm.
So I see the need to closely collaborate with industry to offer some short-term certificate program, recognizing the micro credentials, allowing students to integrate their life experience into the studies or degree program, because we call it recognition of prior learning. So
Okay.
for example, in future, if you don't have the high school, but you have been working in industry, for example, for 15, 20 years running your own business, probably I should allow them to enter into the MBA program, right? This is recognition of prior learning, so prior experience. So we can integrate their life experience and they will be helpful. They will be very good for other students as well. So university will be transitioning towards a more flexible, modular, towards hybrid education, and the entire university curriculum is going to be undoubtedly in sync with the. It has to be in sync with the future of work.
Yes.
So that's what I think. I think there will be more micro credentials. There will be more recognition of prior learning.
Yeah. I love the concept of the two, the world of work and higher education collaborating more. And that was one of the reasons I asked you that question, because if you're developing people and the organization is looking and looking someplace else, so how can both get together and kind of coalesce around a certain vision of how you're going to create a partnership as you develop all these leaders and put them out here in the organization? The organization should design some kind of approach that could kind of sink into that collaboratively.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Dr. Singh, thank you so much for this interesting conversation. I knew it would be an interesting conversation. I knew that, but that's why we wanted you here. So thank you so much. I'll be in touch with you. I want you to take that article on the gendered leadership and break it down into like 1,000, 1,200 words and put it out there. Send me a link to it so I can get it out to the world. Thank you. Thank you
I
so
will
much.
definitely do that.
I'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Ron. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.